2, and I'm back again with another book review. I know it's actually taken me a while to get to this point, but I've been studying for months and months and months and months for my CCI, which I take today, and I'm just a tad bit on edge about it. Okay. I am nervous about it. Let me just state that up front. But the book itself is called Troubadour, and as you can tell, it's written by an English author because there are lots of OURs. Her name's Mary Hoffman, and this book was written in 2009. And the basic synopsis here is right in the beginning. It's the winter of 1208. There's a dispute between the Pope and the Cathars. 13-year-old Lady Elinor, secretly in love with Troubadour Bertrand de Miramont, is determined to avoid her imminent marriage to an older man. Well, actually, there's a it's told from her point of view, so it makes it really intriguing. She runs away from her family, disguised as a joglar, which is a male minstrel, and then they figure out later that she's a girl when she starts having her period. But it's interesting. She's unaware of the dangers ahead as the Albigensian crusade begins, and its onslaught on her native Languedoc. And it kind of reminds me of Yentl. I'm not sure why. Maybe because a woman disguises herself as a man. And there is a glossary of Ossetian words and historical notes. I'm just going to read the historical notes because I thought the historical notes were fascinating. Troubadours and Cathars. There was a period of a few decades in the 13th century in southern France where noble women were regarded as almost equal to men under the law. They could inherit property from their fathers or husbands and received a bride price rather than having to pay a dowry on marriage. This coincided with middle period of the troubadours, aristocratic songwriter poets who compose mainly platonic love poetry and songs dedicated to the wives of their of their liege lords. They are not to be confused with joglars or minstrels, usually of lower social rank, who are performers of songs and other types of entertainment. Their female equivalents were joglaresses. And at this time, some aristocratic women, highly articulate and educated, wrote their own love songs and debate poems. These women were troubadourists, or female troubadours. However, they did not idealize men in the way that the troubadours idealized women, and they wrote some pretty straightforward verse about the pains and pleasures of love. Some of this took place in the south of France in the area today known as Languedoc, where many of the noble families were Cathars, that is to say, they were dualists who believed in the separation of good and evil forces and did not believe in the incarnation of God as Jesus Christ. They did not call themselves Cathars or credentes, or believers, or true Christians. Most of the advanced of them who became monks and nuns and preachers were known as perfects, or bonhommes or bonnes femmes, good men and good women. Even ordinary believers aspire to become perfects at their deaths. And the Albigensian crusade, sorry, that's not easy to say. The inciting incident for the whole Albigensian crusade, as the word that against the Cathars was called, was the murder of Legate Pierre of Castelnau. But it is my invention, that's the author's invention, that the crime was witnessed by a troubadour. At the same troubadour was witness to other terrible things recorded in the course of this book. From 1209 to 1229, the Cathars were ruthlessly persecuted by the Pope, promised their lands to any northern Frenchmen who would fight 40 days in the crusade against them. This was a lot easier than traveling to the Middle East to gain land or fortune. Many thousands of Cathars and non-Cathars alike were slaughtered to rush the cash in to take their lands and wealth. They showed little resistance, being pacifists. Later, some were offered the opportunity to renounce their beliefs and become good Catholics, but in the beginning there was no mercy. What happened in Béziers, I have recounted truly. The abbot wrote to the Pope, "Today, Your Holiness, 20,000 citizens were put to the sword, regardless of rank." It was a thriving and prosperous fortified city run efficiently by Viscount Trincavel, who lived in the bigger city of Carcassonne to the west. Raymond Roger Trencava was a remarkable young man. He had inherited his title when he was only 9, and managed to hold on to it at a time when it was difficult for miners to grow into manhood. Well, of course, a lot of them were dying because of plague and whatnot, let alone retain their lands. And actually, it talks about the Count of Toulouse and the feudal system and the Languedoc, the language de och. Actually, och meant yes, and it was also called the language de l'huile, which became lui. She provided a language of Occitan. And it's really quite interesting, and then there are some fate historical characters that she speaks of, and it really isn't that long. It's only 200 some pages, and the glossary is actually very, very helpful, and I love medieval literature like this, and I really highly recommend it. It was something I just picked up on a whim, and I know it's more for young adults, but it's still a very good book if you're looking for a book concerning this period of time, because I don't think there are a lot of books written about that, and it also gives a very fascinating account of a woman who didn't really want to kowtow to her mother's set beliefs and get married to an older man. She was independent. She wanted Elinor. I really like Elinor. Elinor is a headstrong woman, and she's in love with Bertrand, so she wants to follow him wherever he goes, no matter where that might lead. And it's a love story in and of that sense. Also, it has a lot of truisms about the horror of the time, how sanguinary it was, and how many people died just because people wanted different lands. There was a lot of conquering going on, and that's very historically accurate. Even though some of the things might have been made up by Miss Hoffman, it's still I think it's a very historical and accurate account.